So I recently purchased the Trinsetto knife. It's an Italian leather pattern knife, and I've decided to make a little sheath for it, so a wet molded sheath for it, because of course it's kind of a fixed blade. You can remove it, but it doesn't slide in and slide out, so it needs somewhere to, well, store it safely really. You can hang it up, he's got a hole at the back, but to have it on the workshop table, I think it's better to have something just to keep the blade from cutting me. So I've made a little wet molded sheath there. So we're going to stitch that in today. Now I'm going to do an Instagram live at the same time. So bear with me a second, guys. And so there's no editing in this video. So I'm now live. So making the Trinsetto knife blade a little bit more safer by making a sheath. So I've got some thread, and I've already threaded my needles, so I'm going to put that into there. So I've just clamped my Abbey England clams to the table. Now I'm stitching this 11 stitches per inch, and I'll show you the pricking iron. So this is the pricking iron that I'm using, so that's 11 stitches per inch, so very, very fine. It's J. Dixon. And I'm just going to take some 003 needles with some 632 fil chinois. Hey guys, how's it going? Hey Ben. Glad you guys can join us. So I'm using the Jerome David All blade here. So I'm just going to prick, well not prick, I'm just going to go through the first three. And then I'll be back stitching. Leveling up. I'm going to do a binding over stitch on the top on this one. You don't really have to, but gives it a slightly tighter look. And this is hand dyed, of course. 11 stitches per inch you really don't need to pull very tightly because of the sheer volume. So crossing my needles over now. The sheer volume of stitches. Got a lot more stitches per inch, so you don't need too much of a tight pull. So make sure they're neatly side by side, and then cinch them in. Louis Chili, hello my friend. How's Paris today? I saw your live the other day with your friend. You were teaching someone. And if those stitches are just refusing to sit side by side, just use your needle to realign them. If anyone has any questions on Instagram, feel free. For you guys watching this on Instagram, I am actually recording this with my other camera at the same time, so multitasking really. So this will be available on YouTube because a lot of you guys keep missing the lives and going, where is it? So I'm recording it at the same time, so you can watch it on YouTube if you want to. Obviously it will be unedited. So a little bit of a cast, not a little bit of a cast, there is a cast on this. So very slight angle on both sides. Of course if you don't cast you'll have more of an angle on the front side and then just completely flat. So casting is a little bit of a compromise. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through the Instagram comments. How is the weather over there? Same as usual. It is England. It's been drizzling all day. You casting? Yes, I am casting, yeah. Doesn't look like it. As I put my right needle through, I just grab it, kind of like lift it up and then grab it underneath the thread. Some people like to kind of overtly, I'll give you a demonstration. Some people like to kind of like, you literally see them wrapping it over and then grabbing it afterwards. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just, mine is just a little bit more sleight of hand, shall we say. It doesn't actually look like I'm casting most of the time, even when I am. So 11 stitches per inch is very, very fine. So of course it takes longer to stitch the same seam. And as I mentioned before, for you new Instagram guys, this is hand dyed leather. So I've just dyed it, and I've just added a little bit more around the corners and any areas that are proud, just to give it a bit of a patina look. Might as well. Alright, got some questions on Instagram here. Let's have a look. That's what you mean by casting, yes. He's casting the thread like the UK is casting itself from the EU. No comment. Knife holder, yes. Your products are just class. Thank you very much. Yeah, just to give you an idea of what I'm actually doing. I'm stitching in the Trincetto knife because, of course, it's kind of a fixed blade. It doesn't retract easily. So when it's on the workshop table, I just need something to cover it that will last for many years. So I'm just making a little mini knife sheath for it. Nothing spectacular. Just using up a little bit of scrap leather, 1.5mm leather. No idea what that is in ounces. So 1.5mm is just folded over and then wet molded into shape, really. Basic, but it will last. Can I move the camera in front of me? I would do, but I'm actually recording with my main camera. So if you can't see what I'm doing because my hand's in the way, you can probably later tonight I'll throw this up on YouTube, and then you can watch it in 1080p HD with a better microphone and everything else. Sometimes I forget just how long it takes to stitch 11 stitches per inch. I've actually seen pricking irons up to 24 stitches per inch, which is ridiculous. I don't know why you would do that. Just to say you can, maybe? I don't know. You have a question for me? Yeah, go ahead. Do I ever consider teaching in person? I used to, but I don't have the time for it anymore, unfortunately. The goal is eventually to open my own school with a few other different business ideas. But in the meantime, it is all online training. leathercraftmasterclass.com. All the video courses are on there, which you know, Mike. Of course. But yeah, I plan to in the future. It is something I am reconsidering, but I just don't have the time, unfortunately. Yeah, 24 stitches per inch. I mean, you don't see it too much in the UK anymore, but I mean, you can see some of the old vintage irons, ridiculously high stitch per inch count. There are many different things like little binocular cases and coin pouches and all sorts of kind of luxury trinkets that you get from the early 1900s that are stitched so finely. And you just don't see that in the UK anymore. I think Blanchard still sells up to about 18 stitches per inch. Just got a little bit of separation on the front there. I'm just going to add a touch of PVA. Give me 1 second. Yeah, I think a Blanchard sells up to 18 stitches per inch, which is very fine. I can't imagine that they would sell much. It's just a little bit of PVA from a nozzle, that's all. So as I stitch and it closes up, it just opened up. Probably from the shrinkage of the die. So coming towards the end now. Almost there. And as I mentioned, this is 632 fil chinois. So it's a little bit finer. You could probably go down to 832, something a little bit finer. But that's where linen really does start losing its strength. Stitching in front of the blade now. I've actually left a little bit of room on the blade, maybe just under 1 centimeter, so if I want to have the blade a little bit further out, it will still fit into the pouch. Starting to flex a little bit, bring it further in the clams. Maybe not. There we go. Can I write you a personal message? Of course you can. How do you finish veg tan like this? Usually for workshop items, I will finish with an acrylic resin, just because it's a tough finish and I'm not interested in having anything fabulous if it's just a workshop item. So acrylic resin gives a very slightly shiny finish, but it's quite durable. But equally, you could just give it a good wax, a beeswax and turpentine, something like that. And I'm not stitching all the way down to the very bottom because I'm going to leave it slightly open so that it can actually get some ventilation. So if ever it's the weather has been a bit damp, then the carbon steel blade, because it's a hacksaw blade, which is probably M2 high-speed steel, it has a little bit more room to breathe down that end. Otherwise it will be rusting. Alright, let's give that a snippy snip. I suppose it's the same principle as the sunburst finish for guitars. I'm not sure what that is. You like my little Eiffel Tower? I got these from Sarjou in Paris, little Eiffel Tower scissors. They're very small. I'm just going to tuck these in. So I'm just tucking in those threads there. And then just a little dab of PVA, just to keep them in place. So that's how you normally finish a natural thread. As you tuck them back in, and just a touch of PVA in the hole that you tuck them back in. When that dries, especially after you tap them down, it's going to look a lot better. I thought the finishing question was concerning the coloration of the leather, not the actual finish. Oh, okay. No, it's just some leather dye that I made. This stuff here, it's alcohol-based one, aniline dyes. You can actually buy them in powder form. eBay, Amazon, lots of online sellers. Mostly it's used for wood these days, but it's what used to be very popular in leatherwork many, many years ago. Right, let's tap this down. That's not good. And what I need is a bone folder. This is a good thing that doesn't happen on my regular videos. It's all prepped and ready to go. So when you've got stitches right in a corner that you can't get to, because if I show you that there, if it's in focus, there you go. Yeah, if you can't get to the stitches right in the edge there, because obviously it's rounded. So if I hammered that, I would just be hammering the knife. Just grab a bone folder and then just press them down manually. Give them a bit more beans than you normally would to make up for the lack of hammer. So there you go. So right now, it's very, very stiff, of course. But that is essentially it. Just a quick and simple wet molded sheath. 11 stitches per inch. Contrast stitch for no particular reason. So it'll need to be worked in a little bit. I'll probably wax that just on the inside. Let it get used to it, but apart from that, simple knife sheath. Now I can pop it in my my pocket on my apron, or just leave it on the table, and I'm not going to cut myself. How did I hold the clam in place while I am standing and stitching? It's a very, very complicated process of clamping it to the table leg. There's just a little bit of leather at the bottom and at the top just to protect the clam finish. Otherwise it's going to be removing the shellac on it. But yeah, it's just clamping it on. Doesn't really need too much pressure either. More questions, more questions. Do I use Resolene on edges as well? Yeah, sometimes. It's a very good edge finish. I think it's quite underrated for finishing edges. After a good sanding and a dyeing and you've polished it up, Resolene still absorbs quite well into a burnished edge and gives it a nice protection. I've got some other examples. I'll give you, I'll show you. So this is actually a sheath to protect this. So for most of my vintage irons, I have one of these because the steel is softer, and I usually stitch the edge with the same with the pricking iron itself that's inside, so I know at a glance what I'm looking at. And this is actually finished with acrylic Resolene, so you see there's a bit of a finish to it. I haven't dyed the edges, and that is just a very mild burnish. I'm not looking for anything. I'm not selling this product, of course. That's just a light burnish with an acrylic Resolene, and that makes for a very, very durable edge. I've used this for quite some time now, and it's been on the workshop table, and it looks like brand new. So I do like acrylic Resolene for that reason. It's quite a durable finish. It adds a bit of a shine to it, so would I use it on products? It really depends on what kind of product that I'm making and whether or not it needs a shine. And to be honest, it does have a little bit of a plasticky feel because of course it is plastic. It's an acrylic finish. Is that leather storage tubes you have up there on your shelf? If so, is that your preferred storage system? So for you guys on YouTube, he's talking about these, and there's a whole stack of them underneath the table as well. Yes, I prefer. I had these custom made actually, which that sounds posh, but it's not. It doesn't cost very much to have them made. I think it's a 6mm wall thickness, and they're 8 inches inside. But they help prevent you scratching your leather. But at the same time, they're actually made of very strong cardboard, so it breathes and allows the leather to breathe. So sometimes when you put inside plastic tubes, you can actually prevent it breathing. You get buildup of moisture and you get a mold. And I've even seen some stink like fish. I had a friend of mine that stored them in large plastic tubes, ABS plastic tubes, and he pulled some prize leather out. He said, "Oh, you gotta see this." Pulled it out and it stank of fish. It was yeah, it was disgusting. No problem, Ben. All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for watching the live. For you guys watching this on Instagram after the fact, I'm going to throw this up on YouTube so you can watch it at a later date. Now I've just got to finish off the edges and it will be done. But essentially, that's it. Thanks for watching.